Hey, I think about this Bible verse a lot. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I often feel that I don't want hope. I don't want any glimpse or false hope that certain things can change because it would only crush me in the long term. And it's coming from a realistic point of view. And I know what it's like to be hopeless. I probably am hopeless deep down, but more so detached. How many times do you have to try something before it kills your spirit? How many times do you have to do something to understand that you truly do have limitations and there's no way to correct it? Genuinely accepting that there are some things you cannot and will never fix, and feeling like there's hope that it can hurts you more instead of accepting it. I resent this toxic positivity or the optimism given by other people because I'm not living in their reality. You reach these areas where you feel happiness for a while and then it just reverts because the human mind, it gets unsatisfied. You need to, conquer something new in order to, feel good about yourself. You have to go to the next hurdle, the next thing, and everything is now out of reach. You'll own nothing and be happy. I think it's a cruel existence. I was having a chat with a few people and I mentioned that I wanted something more than this existence, right? And he pushed back on it or asked me a few questions like, what makes this existence not enough? And I feel that Christianity or spirituality, it brainwashed me into believing that I want something different than this life. It really conditioned me to want a heaven because this must be hell, right? And it pushes you out of your body. It gears you towards goals that are unattainable in this realm. And it pushes you to essentially dissociate into la la land or meditate away what's in front of you. It is a real aspect to life, but we are physically living here right now. And a lot of us have been indoctrinated by Christianity or the people who preach it to not care for the riches here, but care about the riches in heaven, right? While they steal your wealth, while they exploit you, there's gonna be a reward at the end of this torturous life. It also makes me think that, or feel that even when I'm enjoying myself in this life, I'd rather be in a different realm, not the hell realm that we live in. And this escapism, this idea of escaping it's a coping mechanism to really not look directly of the brutality of real life. It comes from the helplessness of knowing that there's only so much you can do. I'd rather fantasize because every couple months there's somebody attempting to jump off of my building and unalive themselves because life is really beating people down. So many people. And this quote, I guess I'm quoting things now from this movie. I think it's called Total Eclipse. I watched it so many years ago. Arthur said that the only unbearable thing is that nothing is unbearable. And I felt that so heavy. I really resonated with that so heavy because you're always going to adjust. The human mind usually adjusts so many times before it finally breaks and you can never get back from it. But sometimes you just keep adapting no matter how terrible it gets. And being resilient in that sense is extremely painful. And it is traumatizing because you just keep adapting, you keep adjusting, you keep evolving. All of it is painful. Even the good parts are painful. In order for me to feel happy, I have to go through a lot of shit. I have to resolve a lot of darkness within myself. And then I'm good for a while. And then some other stuff comes up and I'm like, gotta deal with that. The way I'm looking at the world is how, I guess, like it's always been this way. It's always been in constant conflict. People can never come to a real resolution. Where does real justice come along? The P. Diddy case, I'm devastated. How can these people not get convicted? I think that put the nail in the wall. Or is it the hammer? I don't know. But I don't want to fucking hope that there's ever going to be justice. Because look at what's in front of us, man. Like, I don't want to walk around hopeless and feel like I can never protect myself and not encourage other people to protect themselves. But this world is so messed up. And the hope deferred is the hope that someone can save us. Someone can save us. That's why we need a savior. In order for us to be saved, we have to transmute into a different realm. We have to get on a higher state of consciousness. I can't deal with this world. I think my psyche's had enough. But you know what? I just keep adapting. The only unbearable thing is that nothing is unbearable. There's no real option other than to keep going. Because then you're just going to decline and it's going to be way worse. So you just have to keep going anyway. I've calculated how much time left I approximately have on this earth. And it feels like I'm just waiting to get there. I'm like, oh man, okay. I can do this, I can do that. Okay, I have X amount of time to do this. Okay, do this by then, blah, blah, blah. I'm very aware of the temporary states of this life. And you know what? When I first kept looking up, hope deferred makes the heart sick, hope deferred makes the heart sick, I just get those videos where they put on the corny background music and optimistic smile or this Christian smile where it's like, keep going. If you're working at something that will never fucking work, I think you should quit and do something that will. But quitting isn't a good habit to have. But you should know when to quit, I think. But what do I know? I think you should take advice from people who have succeeded in the things that you want. Only take advice from people who are successful at it. And I understand that they want to make people happier. But I get so miserable when I'm expected to be happy when I'm not. Act satisfied when you're not. That makes me miserable. I think I'm a generally happier person because I know how I actually feel. And I'm not performing my fucking emotions for everyone. I guess the other part of the scripture would be, but a desire fulfilled is the tree of life. Well, I want to say no S-H-I-T, but it's hard for me to say that after a Bible verse. What about it never being fulfilled? Do we ever talk about that? Do we ever talk about people going their entire lives being given hope for something that was never for their benefit anyway? This system gives us false hope. The evil people in our lives give us false hope that they could perhaps not do the evil things that they do. The narcissist gives you false hope. The narcissists on the pulpit give the false hope to the community that they're exploiting. And they always delay it They always push it back and tell you to wait a little bit longer because they bite on the time, your wasted precious lifetime, to get away with this scam, to feed you this false hope, because these people are often not of God. I think about people who are dreamers. People who have idealism, who want for something more. They want to bring their imagination into reality, and that's where you make some real progress and change. They're not appreciated until the job's done. And oftentimes the job is not done because reality is harsh. And even when it's done, there's another problem to take its place, and that person's efforts their entire life is often swept under the rug and unappreciated because there are so many advancements happening at once. The world is moving so quickly, and historical figures are being lost. The people who were truly behind many inventions or many different everyday things that we have, they are lost in time. They have no accreditation for what they put into humanity for what it is now. People are very fame hungry. They want notoriety. They want to go down in history for something, right? People want to be known. People want popularity. It's not possible for all of us. We're going to be lost in the echoes of time, and all that matters is what's in our actual lives in front of us and our experiences. There's another verse that I think about sometimes. Psalms 144:4. Man is like a breath. His days are like a passing shadow. We have such a short time to supposedly get it right. And sometimes I wonder if you put in all this effort really leads to something. Even with my understanding, I still have doubts. And I think that I'd regret not being a degenerate. I feel very robbed of life experiences as a Christian growing up. Or at least I take on the label as a Christian from my parents, but I've never felt that way. I've always felt agnostic. And even now, I don't fully align myself with the Bible. Honestly, reading it makes me miserable. It sends me into depression every time. But I'm gonna, just nitpick and choose the verses that I care about and throw away the rest, just like all the real Christians out there. Being denied of watching movies, being denied of going to certain events, feeling like if I eat the wrong foods, it's unclean. I fundamentally understand the reason for why this was a thing, but growing up in this way that was considered sheltered, that was not really sheltered at all. It was just a cult. It really messed with the way that I interact with the world and see life. What also comes to mind is the rejection of logical thinking that came with my Christian upbringing. Denying common sense and magical thinking being at the forefront of everything. Like, even for an example, I just took a break from talking to my phone, and I'm talking about recording this voice message right now. I went on a Reddit, and there's this video of this Christian people rebuking a tornado from touching down in their neighborhood. And then they were speaking in tongues and all that stuff. What's crazy? Speaking in tongues, it sounds a lot like when I'm having neurological issues and I just say a bunch of stuff out of my mouth. because like my nervous system is jolting. And if you are not in a constant state of spiritual psychosis, you are heavily condemned for it. You are at your most controllable when you are deluded in some sense. And there was this underlying misogyny and rejection of logic and education. Is what I was talking about earlier, where we were taught to not value this life like we should. But you should, because you need money to buy nutritious food so that you can develop properly and have a better shot at actually obtaining spiritual enlightenment, because you need those other things to support you getting there. You need safety, you need comfort. Hardships are supposed to challenge you, not be your main baseline. And being taught to suffer in this way and it being seen as holy is what's being taught to me. I grew up mostly without electricity because it was sort of seen as evil. I genuinely grew up very similarly to Amish people without like the horse and carriage. Like I was on that level of isolated. I really do mean that. It's not that we couldn't get a phone, but I didn't have a phone because I was being controlled. Doesn't want us like calling anybody. But eventually we got a phone, but he had access to it, not us for a while. It was some crazy stuff, but I was only allowed eventually to see some television like shows or movies, but it was like particular things to reinforce this brainwashing. And then I have to think about technology. I grew up thinking technology is evil, and it gave a lot of resistance to me appreciating these beautiful pieces of art, because they are vehicles for evil, let's be real. But that comes with every new innovation. Everything is going to be hijacked and used for evil, good, evil, etc. But things are getting very scary with AI. We're gonna have an AI rapture, guys. I think I'm just making stuff up. I think a lot of Christians do that all the time, so why can't I do it to entertain myself a bit? But what I'm really trying to say is that we live in a simulation. Instead of me saying the Matrix, it's basically the same thing. AI is going to create a whole new existence, like a whole new form of consciousness. Man, I was listening to a podcast and this lady was saying that everything built at such like a nano scale. Like if it's built really small next to an atom, it is conscious in its own way. So, man, it's really freaky. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can believe it. But anyway, me rejecting technology has just not done well for me. Well, I embrace it somewhat now, but it's still constantly scary. I still feel this pushback because it's not a bunch of mumbo jumbo. There is so much evil that's gonna come from this, and what's already coming from this. I am somewhat scared, and it's part of the reason why I feel like my hope is deferred, because I didn't want it to get to this extent, and I fear that once this entire planet is unrecognizable from AI, once it gets into everything, it's integrated into everything, this whole place becomes a hologram and a simulation, a whole matrix within itself. We're going to be trapped further into this matrix. It's going to be even harder for people to understand that this is hell, that this isn't from God. that this place has been entirely infiltrated and taken over by evil forces. Those evil forces are going to be driven by the consciousness and this new form of technology that's coming. It's like I'm seeing the collapse of society happening so quickly. It's too much for me to process. And I don't need to process it all. I don't have to feel it all. It's just very hard to avoid seeing it all. I don't know if that made sense whatsoever, but it just came out of my mouth. But I don't like this pressure to fight the inevitable. AI is going to take over. That's inevitable. There's no point in resisting a lot of it. It's integrated into everything, and it's not inherently evil. But it's going to be used for very evil purposes for sure. But yeah, I think Christianity really made me like resistant to change. And I didn't really mean to say that I rejected education. I think I was trying to say that it indoctrinates you to only welcome education that has to do with the Bible or Christianity. So you can be very open to learning more about the Bible and going into the lore of the Bible and what it means and all this stuff, but reject the way of the world because that's more righteous, right? And the way of the world is often associated with actual progression and practical means. And technology is a very practical means of progression. It makes our lives easier. It's the reason why I can listen to people who I've never met in person, who live across the continent. I think that so many things are possible. Technology is magical. I know how a lot of it works, but I don't get it, you know? It just kind of does. It kind of does its thing. I'm like, yeah, that works this way. That some of it is just like, I don't know, it just does that. So you're like, you know what? Let's keep rolling with it. And I'm just thinking a lot about how essentially we're just being taught for someone to save us, you know? Jesus save us from AI taking over the world, but it's gonna have to happen anyway. Even if you look at it through a biblical lens, the book of Revelation has to be fulfilled, right? And we're living in end times. There's always this stressor that we live in end times. There's this pressure to surrender right now and give your money right now. And it's like, bruh, I was born like yesterday. What do you mean if I don't get right with God, I'm going to hell because the world's ending right now? That is traumatizing. It really messes up your rhythm of living. So you have this anxiety where you have to constantly pray. You have to constantly ask for forgiveness because the rapture can happen any moment now. And then, you know, the Christians, they're always looking for different signs and symbols that it will be to affirm, you know, these biblical teachings. But, you know, simultaneously, you know, those things may be true, but I see these celebrities intentionally, symbolically fulfilling those things in the Bible in order to garner your attention because it's just brainwashing. It's their means of controlling you because they're past Christianity. They may not be in something good. I think they're very evil, but they know the Bible better than most Christians. And they know some more. And they're using the knowledge of all of this to keep you under another spell that you're not aware of. You're following the plan or the guidelines of the enemy to fall into their trap and under their control, and you don't see it. But then at the same time, the Bible, I don't believe that the Bible is entirely written by God. or people who had God speak through them. I think a lot of stuff slipped in, but there are some gems in there. It's so easy to fall into bitterness reading the Bible, in my experience. I picked that up a few months ago, maybe a year ago. Was it 2 years? I don't know. Time is flying. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to read this with an open heart. And man, I felt miserable, so bitter. Reading that thing makes me so miserable. I don't see how that brings anybody peace. What brings me peace is speaking my mind and just living as myself. Anyway, I think I'm done rambling. I'm gonna go. Even if there's no resolve to this, I feel just fine. But, do take care. Live life anyway. Fuck it. We're all gonna croak anyway. So, peace.